if you keep ending in the same place with different people, it might be time to look inward. There are times where we have given things our all, we've done work, we really feel that we have, and we're like, okay, I cannot keep doing this anymore, right? That there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Great. And if we do that and we find that we are in the same dynamic, just it's like, plug me in, same person, different scenario or different group of people, but the same like thing keeps happening. There used to be this statement, and it's like there's a common denominator. Right? The common denominator is like you can put me in different relationships and I'm going to kind of have the same kinds of problems. The common denominator is me. Okay? And I really invite you to consider that if you are someone who you find yourself in this moment of, I've been trying my best to deal with this situation. I have done the work, okay? And I can't do this anymore. Okay? Look back to you in different like groups or environments. Is that a pattern for you? Before you move on, and I want to offer three things. I've really been like, how can I talk about this? Because it's not simple. It's not like, let me give you three steps and then how to move on. That's very irresponsible, in my opinion, to do that, okay? Because there's different layers to who we are and why we do things, okay? So, perfect example about what I'm talking about, patterns. That it might be something about us because there's where the common denominator is. When I was in middle school, okay, it was that particular season of my life. I did not have good relationships with middle school girls, okay? And that was my origin of, you cannot trust girls. Girls do you wrong. So I didn't realize at age 11 and 12 how my view of girls was being shaped, but it was bottom line distrust, okay? Fast forward in my life, not realizing that was like my perception unconsciously of women. Anytime you put me in a group of women, I did not do well. Okay, I could not be myself. I felt very constricted. I was very distrusting. I could never allow myself to fully be me in relationships with women until I started to really see, wait a minute. And this was like when my 30s, okay? You're talking like from 11 to like 31. That's a long time, okay? I started to realize, anytime I'm with women, I have this challenge. I'm the common denominator, okay? So I painted the picture, okay? The first thing I'd like to offer is that before you leave any relationship, situation, like work environment, whatever, community, just make sure you take a look inward and explore, is this a pattern? Is this a dynamic that I've seen before? Do I tend to feel the same way in different environments? Maybe there's a part of me that gets activated here. Okay? Now, if that's you and you're willing to look inward, I highly recommend you work with a trained coach, a life coach, or a therapist. Okay. These are, therapy and coaching are very different. Okay. They're not the same thing. When you work with someone who's trained, they can help you not just being aware, okay, which is a huge thing, but a trained practitioner can help you bring healing, or let's just say closure, to that part of you that has struggled. For me, it was the 11-year-old Venice. There was just stuff around that I'd not had closure and brought some healing to that middle school girl. Okay. Highly recommend. It's a worthwhile investment of your energy to do that kind of work, because like I'll speak for myself. For me, the difference is being able to be around women. Like really, like give myself to community, like as a woman, like being able to be around other women is so beautiful. It's nourishing. It's like, oh, I just feel so like in my, like with my people, right? So it's worth it to do the internal looking and work around that. And that's why whenever it's like, oh, you're thinking about moving on, it's not just like easy. Step one is look inward. Is there a pattern? Is that dynamic in other places? And then do the appropriate actions, whatever that is that you see to take. Okay. Now, the second point I want to offer today is to let yourself grieve. Like, what I mean by that is, what am I actually losing if I walk away? See, when we transition out of anything, this is like some of the best advice I ever got. Oh, so much great. Like, I wouldn't say advice, but just something that someone that I really trust and value offered me. And that is, look, when you choose to make like go your own way, you're going to grieve either way. You're going to grieve feeling like, wow, what could have been if I had stayed and it had worked out, right? That's a loss. And then there's another grief of, staying. I'm choosing to stay and grieving, wondering what could it have been like. Either way, it's like really taking the time to look at and explore what's going to be the fallout of me staying and leaving. Maybe asking, am I grieving the people, the community? Or or the version of me I thought I would be here? It might be like asking yourself, am I grieving the dream that I dreamed of here more than the reality? Or another question you could ask yourself is, what did I hope this would become? So even when leaving is the right thing for you to do, it can still hurt. There's loss happening. So I want to offer that for your consideration. Okay. The third thing I'd like to offer is consciously choosing from who you are now. If I made this decision from who I am now, not the 10-year-old version of me or the 10 years ago version of me, what would I choose? Going back to point number one, I really firmly believe wholeheartedly we can't really choose from who we are now unless we've taken the time to look at and explore what version of me keeps showing up here. Many times it's a young version of us. I'm not saying this is the way it is. This is something for you to think about, okay? Many times, like for me, who was showing up in communities with women was an 11-year-old girl, teenager, or young teen, preteen, who was just hurt because she wasn't really accepted by the other girls in her classes. And I'd never done like the exploration to sort that out for myself. So it just kept showing up. That's like, it's called a projection. Okay, like that's kind of the word. So We say many times, I'm choosing, this is who I am now, but really, unless we've taken some time to do the introspective work and look at who shows up at this workplace, who shows up with this group of women, we can't really choose. You want to be real literal here, okay? So you could ask yourself, what do I value now that I didn't value before? What do I value now that I didn't value before? The second is, and there's so much more I want to say, but I'm not going to, okay, for sake of time. The second thing you could ask yourself is, what no longer fits here now? And the third is, what feels aligned, like aligned with who I am, or just familiar? Sometimes we stay in relationships and we stay in groups, in careers, because it's familiar. And the thing I love about midlife in particular is that midlife, for me, it's like asking us, is this still true for me now? Okay. And I want to just say one thing, like, I have some suspicions about some kind of common themes, okay, that we kind of tolerate and we stay in things. And I'm not going to do a deep dive. If you would like a deep dive in my thoughts, leave me a comment. I would be more than happy to do another video. But one is that I'm speaking for myself, but also working with women for a living, is stability, security, and safety. The thought of moving on can present as a threat for, bottom line, feeling safe. So if you find yourself in a moment where you're really contemplating, moving on, and I'm talking, it could be a relationship, like a friend relationship, a romantic relationship, a community relationship, a career relationship, just look for yourself. Is there a part of me that feels really hesitant because it just feels like unsafe to do this? And, I don't have an answer for you. It's just like, we could talk about it, but I'm not going to do that now. But I just want to name that specifically. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just being human. It really is. And consider, if you trace back, there might be a version of you who was in a season or period of time where you felt unsafe. Like for me, it would be the 32-year-old version of Venice, where in my 30s, I made some bold life moves to take on being responsible in my life in ways I never had before. There were times, like there was a few years where I really struggled financially. Okay. I was still raising my kids. There were times where I did not have food to eat, and I chose to give my children food versus me food. And like, I knew, like, being financially insecure, like, okay, like in a very real way. And what I didn't realize that, fast forward in my 40s and 50s, and I'm talking about even like last year, I shared in another video about some real challenges in my marriage, right? The thought of ending a relationship or a job, it was like that young 32-year-old Venice was like, you can never go back to that again. So one of the dynamics at play for me in letting go of things, like moving on, not honoring what no longer aligns with me, is I cannot go without food. Even though in reality I wouldn't. It's a perception. It's a very real part of us that maybe for some of you in the past knows what it's like to go without in a very real way. Like, I can't pay the bills, I'm broke, I'm in debt. And a lot of times we just try to like ignore it, or just move on anyways. And I'm not suggesting that we do that. I'm suggesting the complete opposite, which is actually allow for that very real side of us to be seen. Like, what it looked like for me. I mean, I did actually quite a lot of work around this, okay? But it was like just connecting with my 32-year-old Venice. And yeah, it was really hard back then. It was really hard, and it was really scary. See, that's a complete opposite of, oh, just moving on. No, I'm like acknowledging what is actually there in a very compassionate way. And then it's also, just like allowing that and practicing standing in a place of courage, of clarity, that, yeah, I'm not 32 anymore. I'm 52. And the 52-year-old Venice has a lot of ability to create things, to find opportunities, to make money, I'm very resourceful. I have like skills that people will pay me for. And even being consciously aware of who I am at 53 and 54, which I'm about to be 54 in a few weeks when I'm recording this, being consciously aware of who I am now, and it's like holding two things at the same time. I talk about this from time to time. Holding two things at the same time could be, I'm allowing that younger version of me who's scared to move on to exist with the grown, very capable 50-something-year-old me. I can hold both at the same time. I'm speaking from my experience, but you can kind of map on whatever you're dealing with. And it's so experiential, but when we can really do that, hold on to those two things at the same time, like sides of us, something really beautiful happens. And the way I would describe what happens for me is I feel more space. I find that I can take action and not feel so stressed out. The fear kind of dissipates, or when it comes back, I can be like, oh, that's the side of me that's probably scared, and I can still like have space for that, because I'm a human being that has a real history. I can do that. I choose to do that. There's some more I want to say, but I'm going to leave it there. So I'd love to hear what you're taking away from this. I really would. And I just want to really, kind of, as I'm leaving, offer just, if you're about to move on, make sure you're not moving on from a pattern of yours. Do the work. It's worth it. I found myself doing the work and still in the end leaving. And boy, I will tell you, leaving as I've done the work was so freaking liberating. It was like so empowering. It was like, oh no, I know I've really done the work here. It's not a young, hurt version of me that's choosing. It's the grown up, very capable, very courageous Venice. And I'm choosing, I'm not going to continue here. It, like literally the first time I've ever done that in my whole life at 53. The second thing is, I encourage you to make space for grieving what you're leaving. And then lastly, decide what you're going to do from who you are now, just not where you were. All right. I will see you next time. Bye.